Greetings everyone, Francis Fernando here. Hey, wanted to shoot this quick video. I'm about to get on a call with a client who is an engineer. So he's a professional, he's an engineer that has recognized the importance of creating wealth. Now he had this recognition and I guess this epiphany all on his own, so I can't take any credit for the fact that he had this epiphany. Now I had this epiphany many years ago where I realized and recognized the importance of my job, because my job offers me the dignity, stability, and ability to live the life that I do. But I also realized that in order to create true sustainable generational wealth, I couldn't really rely on my job, solely on my job. So sort of my mantra has been, keep your full-time job, invest in real estate as a path towards creating wealth. So this client has come upon this understanding all by himself. So I credit him for that epiphany that he's come up with. And more importantly, I credit him for taking action. You see, there's all too many people who have these intentions of creating wealth, but they don't take the necessary action and the necessary steps. So he is taking the necessary steps, so I credit him for that. I've been working with him and sort of inspiring him along the way with giving him the right skill sets. He also did recently call me up and give me some thanks and appreciation for reading the Job Plus Real Estate Equals Wealth book. So it's a book I authored many years ago, and it's got the foundational principles on how to invest in real estate for a busy professional. So he's read that book, he loves the book, he called me to thank me for that. And I'm about to hop on a call with him to, he shot me a LinkedIn message over the weekend and said, hey Francis, I think there's a building that is based on your, on your analysis, based on what the book says. I've done my numbers, I've run my numbers, and it looks like it is the right building for me. I just want to pick your brain about a couple of different items. So let's see what this call is about, and let's see if I can utilize this as a learning moment for you that is listening to this video. All right, so we're about to jump in. By the way, he's on a completely different time zone, and I had to be conscious of that because we had to reschedule this call once just because of time zone confusions. It's important to know which time zone you're calling into. How are you? Oh, pretty good. Oh, no worries, man. I completely forgot that you were on a completely different time zone. And it's interesting, I had finished my work, I started my morning workout, and I timed it around our call. Right, so I got done, I was all sweaty, and I'm sitting here, I was like, oh, maybe and I didn't want to really proactively call you because I didn't know if you had some stuff going on at work. But around 11:30, I was like, oh, I haven't heard from you, and I had a call that just ended. So we are good. So it's noon over there, right, where you are? Okay, perfect. Cool. So give me the rundown of this building. I'm interested in hearing how you came to, how it hit the market. How you determined it was, based on your LinkedIn message, how you determined it was the right property. And specs of the building were, it's a 12-unit residential apartment building. Property was built in when? 1920s, okay. And then average rents, are they market rents or are they below market? So I have a series of questions. Are they below market? Is it a long-term owner, or is this a guy who's just bought it recently, a gal who just bought it and is looking at turning around and flipping the building, or same owner? Previous to that, if it was a long-term owner? And the only reason I'm asking all these questions, Josh, is I want to determine deferred maintenance. Usually when the property is just flipped around like that, they haven't really taken care of it. When it's a property that's been, I kind of attribute it to when I buy a car, and people always think I'm weird when I say, hey, is this a one owner? My kids always say, Dad, what's the purpose? Why do you care? And there's actually a lot to the difference between a one owner versus a car that's been flipped around quite a bit. Now, interesting. So, it's a fair request. In fact, I think your request is a normal request because they bought it at $382. They're selling it at $585 within a year. That's a $200,000 gain, right? I mean, you want to be able, now I don't know if when they purchased it at 382, was that below market or was that sort of at market at the time? No, even just from a price perspective, is that like, yeah, is that 382, like, would you consider that a smoking deal a year ago? I mean, it's probably about the same market we're in. Yeah, so they got it at 382. The question is, what is the value add that they've done in 1 year to justify the 585? At the 585 price point with the current rents, what's the cap? Like, what's the cap rate, cash on cash return? So I mean, I would run it. I mean, there's sort of two. Yeah. So I would be just on the surface, just just sort of from hearing this, I get a little nervous when people aren't willing to furnish. Now, it could be a hidden great deal and maybe their personality is such that they are not very forthcoming, but the fact that they have a $200,000 gain in 1 year, right? Now, immaterial. I don't care that they're making 200,000. I mean, if the price justifies itself, then that's great, right? Because sometimes people get hung up on how much is the other party making. Well, who really cares about what the other person is making? Does it make sense to you? But what I like to have is sort of a correlation between, okay, they got it at a deal, good for them, they bought it at 382. But what was the increment, like how did they improve this building? Or did they just keep it and put lipstick on a pig, for lack of better word, phrase, and they're turning around and flipping it to me, right? Yeah, so that's a little concerning. Now, if you can negotiate, if it's still a good building with solid bones, and you know that, listen guys, I'm not going to be fooled by the upgrades that you've done, because when I draw a correlation, I'm an engineer or you're an engineer, there's no correlation between what you're asking, but I'm willing to pay this much, right? You haven't been able to demonstrate to me that you've upgraded the units, because even though you have upgraded the units, and I know you're telling me, these are all short-term upgrades, and next time I put a tenant in, I'm gonna have to go through and redo those floors because you've done a crappy job on the floors. They're not solid upgrades, How about major mechanicals like heating systems, air conditioning systems, roofs? Are those upgraded or any work done to those? Yeah, one water heater for the entire building, which means you're responsible for the heat on that. Are you responsible for heat in the building? HVAC? Which leads to, and I talk about this all the time, I mean, being a good property manager is being an effective communicator. Right? So, I mean, that's strike one against them. If you've sent a message on an inquiry, it's strike one against them for their current client, because they're doing a disservice to their current client by not responding to a prospective client, and they're doing a disservice to you by not answering the question, and a disservice to them by not answering them, because you probably won't hire them because they've taken a week to respond to a basic question. Right? Here's what I would do just on the surface without getting into too much depth. I would put an offer in based on your numbers, not anyone else's numbers, right? And have a huge contingency, right? So I mean, the offer might be 400, right? Or 425, whatever it makes sense. Oh, there you go, 425, and have a huge, in uppercase, contingency based on, and have no shame in putting a list of 1 to 10. This offer is contingent based on what? A statement, reflecting what the upgrades were and the financials that I had previously requested. And then you can put a caveat and say, I completely understand that the numbers may be skewed, even though that whole statement of skewed numbers really doesn't make sense, because you should be able to explain numbers, right? Like, hey, when someone says it's skewed, I mean, if I look at my financials, I can say, listen, the property doesn't look like it made money. I have a $30,000 loss, but let me explain the $30,000 loss. I mean, that's really all there is to it. I mean, when they say skewed, it's like, guys, this is not rocket science. This is a profit and loss statement. And, if there's a loss, you just explain the loss. And then you should be able to draw a correlation to, okay, I see there was unit upgrades of 50,000. Can you draw a correlation to walk through the units and see that $50,000 upgrade? if you can't, I mean, there's some kind of... So you put your offer in, you have about 10 contingencies on the numbers you were looking for, a response, and I think you should shame the property manager, right? Like, I think we need to be good citizens and call people out who don't, a response from the property manager on an inquiry dated, basically a week ago, right? And my inquiry was blankety blank, whatever it was. Now, access to the roof, or a statement, letting me know when the roof was, and whatever items you have, and you put an offer contingent upon that. If not, I would walk away. The other thing you may want to just check in, because when people are quiet like that, you may want to have a statement of, are there any pending lawsuits? Is there a lead-based claim? Right, because I've dealt with so many lead-based claims, and you know what? A lot of the dishonorable owners will try to pass that off because you inherit that problem. Right, so they try to, because it lives with the building, so they try to pass it off and they don't disclose that. So you may want to have a statement that says it's a catch-all for any pending lawsuits, and then have a specific one for lead-based claim. I will say one more thing. Buildings with a steam heaters are a royal pain in the ass. Yeah, because they're very susceptible to, they have to be just balanced right. Like, in other words, if the heating system is not calibrated right, you're going to get steam in one heater in one unit, and you're not going to get steam in like 2 or 3 units, and it's a really tough thing to kind of chase around. Now, from a tenant's perspective, they're great because they're sort of a moist heat. They're not a dry heat, so it's great as a tenant. But as an owner, sometimes if you have problems with them, if they're not calibrated right, it's really hard to chase down and sort of equalize the heat distribution throughout. Yeah. And usually what happens is the moment they Mickey Mouse with those common area heaters, it just kind of throws everything off balance, because when it was originally designed, it was designed with steam flowing through all of those. Right now, if it was done by a professional, then I might be a little bit more inclined to thinking they're working fine. Once your offer is, if this does go to the next level, I would simply speak to the tenants and have that as a question, a specific question to them, not a general question that says, hey, how's everything in your unit? I would say, hey guys, do you have any issues with these steam radiators? And every unit that you go into, ask them that. And I can almost guarantee you're going to get, well, you know what, I've stated it to the property manager, the 3 in the bathroom and that side of the apartment, they don't really work. And so I have space heaters here. I mean, you're going to get a lot of that. I've dealt with those for over 15 years, and I know if the calibration is off, it's a pain, and it's expensive to chase down. Last thing what you want to do is pay someone a $200,000 gain to pass on a bunch of problems when they haven't really done anything. Now, I'm all for paying someone for something. I'm all for someone making money, right? Because we got to learn to, play in the same sandpit. But you have to be able to draw a correlation into what they've done. If they've hired $5 an hour guys to come in and do Mickey Mouse work, you don't want to. To the visual eye, they made changes that you can just see it, but really internally, there's really nothing. Right, the main mechanicals, and also if they've spent a lot of money on upgrades to chase a repair issue, right? Who cares how much they spent on that, because it really hasn't resolved your problem. You want a capital upgrade, and that's what you're willing to pay for, not for them chasing down a problem. Like, hey, did you guys replace the heating system? Oh, great! I'm totally willing to pay for that. Even if I'm paying, did you replace the hot water tank? I'm totally willing to pay for that. Did you upgrade, 50% of the roof? I'm totally willing to upgrade that. But I'm not willing to pay for you patching a leak on a roof that's only going to last 6 months, and as soon as I buy it, it's gonna open right back up. Well, I hope that helps. Yeah, keep me posted, man. What's the address, if you don't mind? I'll keep it in 100% disclosure. I just like looking at pictures of buildings. Hey, you know what? I've been just sort of on a departing thought. Something that sort of excited me, and I have no experience in this, but I'm just putting it in your ear because I know you're sort of in the looking phase. Self-storage units. I don't know what your thoughts are on that. I have zero experience on it. I'm starting to listen to some stuff because I may be doing a 1031 exchange. I have a home in New Hampshire that I've had for going on going on 15 years now, and it's increased. It's probably doubled in value, and I'm looking at possibly in the next couple of years, not right now, but doing a 1031 exchange. But I want to sort of school myself on the whole self-storage world, and if I can move it from a single-family home into a self-storage unit that's making 80, 90 unit self-storage that's got no tenants, that's going to be a pain in the butt, right? Where I can make a decent return, 8 cap or something like that, that interests me. So I don't know if that's in your area, but it may be something that you may want to just do a quick search and see if they even have those. Oh, I'd be curious to, if you get any info, I'd be curious to know what his thoughts are. I'm looking at, there's a couple of podcasts that I've subscribed to. I have to get a little bit more diligent about listening to those, but I really want to know how to evaluate those. And I just think from the surface, right? I've got a storage unit that is not occupying the space all the time as far as living there and having plumbing issues. It's just stuff is stored. Their credit card is on file, and it's a constant swipe of a credit card. So looks very attractive to me. And our culture, we love stuff in America, right? we love our toys, we love our extra cars, and we don't throw stuff away, so it goes into storage. And we don't mind paying $80 a month if it's under the $100 a month. If it's $80 a month, we'll forget that it's on our credit card on a recurring payment stream. So